Hi Diksha Didi.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And today we are gonna be starting with the examples of using namespace standard. So today we are gonna create our own namespace and then try to work with it to see the exact behavior. Next, then we'll look at break, continue keywords, and then we'll go on to building our battleship game today. All right.
Okay. Hmm.
So let's just start with the namespace concept. Just a second. Alright. So over here we have included IOStream and we are saying using namespace standard. So here we have you can see int x equals to 0 and we have a print text method. We also have a namespace with the same method with the same return type, that is void. Void basically says that there will be no return statement in this method, right? But the body is different. The only difference is in the body. Over here we are printing inside and over here we are printing outside, right? And when we try to call this print text method, this method will be called, as we are not saying using namespace a, right? Our namespace name is a and our namespace is created using the namespace keyword. So when doing print text, this method that is outside will be called. So it shows us outside and it shows us the x value, that is 0, right? What if we had two methods with the same name, with the same return type, but with a different body? Then what would have happened? Over here, we will get an error. This error tells us that the compiler is confused which method to use, the first method or the second method, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, when I do using namespace A, then the behavior will be like this method coming out in the global scope. And because of that behavior, the compiler will get confused which printx method to actually use. So this behavior and the behavior when we uncommented this is the same. Is this clear?
Could you repeat once?
Yeah. So I'm saying that when we have the printx method outside and we basically say using define printtext two times, right? And when we try to call printtext, then what will happen? The compiler will get confused which method to use. Similarly,
Okay.
when saying namespace A and you're doing using namespace A, then what happened? The behavior is like this method coming out in the global scope, and now in the global scope you'll have two methods like print text over here and this method that came out using namespace A. So now you have two methods in the global scope, and note this is just the behavior that I'm explaining. Now you have two methods in the global scope, one whose body is showing outside and other whose body is showing inside. Now similarly, like you had over here two methods in the global scope, a similar error will you will receive that it is ambiguous which printx method to use.
Okay.
And if we didn't have this method outside and we are directly doing using namespace A, then the printx method would have come outside and like it would have worked like it is coming outside, and then we would be accessing the printx method that was in the namespace. This is the standard thing that we're doing using namespace A, right? Like we are doing using namespace standard, similarly we are doing using namespace A, and all the methods of the namespace A are behaving like they are coming outside in the global scope. Any doubts?
Okay. No.
All right. So one thing to note over here that we will study in detail, there's something called method overloading, right? So for example, I wanted to return something like an integer, and I would have said over here return 0, right? And then we are doing using namespace A also. So we have two methods with the same name, right? We have two methods with the same name. Now, which one should it use? It's bringing an error because we are, if I said for example int x is equals to, alright, so overloading
Hmm.
in this does not happen like this. Overloading in this is like void only. But for example, we accept parameters in this, like the first parameter and the second parameter, right? So we have two methods with the. All right, so let's just remove this and sorry, we say int first and int second, right? So we are accepting two parameters in this print text method, and we are accepting no parameters in the print text method that is in the namespace. Now when calling print text, we are not giving it any parameters, so it knows that it should call the method which is accepting no parameters. For example, if I said it 0 and 2, then it will know that to call the method that is accepting two parameters. So though we have two methods with the same name, we are basically able to use those two methods with the same name uh, uh, um, differently, right? So one time we can call the print text method with no parameters by giving no parameters. Other times we can call the print text method with the parameters by giving it the parameters, right? So this is function overloading that we'll study in detail. So right now we give
Okay.
it two parameters. So it called the print text method that was accepting two parameters. If we give it no parameter, it will call the print text method that is accepting no parameters. All right.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So this was a basic working of the using namespace and how to create your own namespace. Now we will move on with the tutorial that is break and continue. So this is very similar to the break and continue that we have in Python. In Python also we can use a break keyword and the continue keyword to basically terminate the loop or to just skip one iteration of the loop. So continue is basically used to skip an iteration of your loop, and break is used to jump out of the loop. So we have already first we'll see break. So you have already seen the break statement used in an earlier chapter of this tutorial. It was used to jump out of a switch statement. So I explained it in brief in switch statements why we have to break, so that it does not need to check all the if it finds a match, it should not check other cases as it has already found a match, and there's no point in basically checking for other cases, right? So over here let's just see it. um, so here we are giving breaks so that, like, if the case X is matched, then there's no point in going on to the case Y, as we already have one match. So the break statement will basically uh, not take much memory of your computer, right? It will terminate when needed, right? And it won't do useless operations.
Okay.
So the break statement can also be used to jump out of a loop. So we used it in the switch statement, but it can also be used to jump out of a loop. So this example jumps out of the loop when I is equals to 4. So we are looping, we are saying int I equals to 0. So we are defining the I variable to 0. We are saying I less than till I is less than 10, increment I. So what it will happen, I is 0, so it will check if 0 is equal to 4. No, it is not equal to 4, so it will print 0. Then it will increment I by 1, right? Then it will go back, it will check if I is 1 is equal to 4. No, so it will print 1. So on, it will check it will check if 3 is equal to 4. So no, so it will print 3. But when I is 4, when we increment I and now it is 4, it will check 4 is equal to 4, so it will break out of the loop, right? So we will have 0 1 2 3. Yes, 0 1 2 3. As in the fourth, when I was 4, we broke out of the loop. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Alright. Next we have the continue keyword. So the continue statement breaks one iteration in the loop. So it just breaks one iteration on the loop. It does not terminate the full loop. It breaks one iteration in the loop if a specified condition occurs and continues with the next iteration in the loop. This example skips the value of 4. In the previous example, we were terminating the loop when reaching 4. In this example, we'll just skip the iteration of 4. So when I will be 4, we'll just go continue and we won't print 4. So we'll get 0, 1, 2, 3. Then we'll check if it is I is 4. So yes, I is 4. So it will continue. So it will not go any forward, anyway forward. It will not go forward, and it will just go to the next iteration, right? So it will skip everything after the continue keyword and go to the next iteration. And next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 9 9 will be printed. So you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is this clear?
Okay.
Right. So then we have break and continue in a while loop. So like we are using it in a for loop, we can also use it in a while loop. So you can also use break and continue in the while loop. So you have int I equals to 0 while I is less than 10. We'll print the value of I, we'll increment I, and if I, it will check if I is 4, then break. So in this example, it will show 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Why? Because it will first say 0, right? So 0 is less than 10, so it will print 0, right? And it will go back, it will then show 1, then 2, then 3, and then when I is 4, 4 is less than 10, it will show the value of 4, it will increment the value, oh no, so it will only show 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm so sorry, I got confused. So because when on the third iteration, when I is 3, it will check 3 is less than 10, it will show 3, it will increment I, right? So now I will be 4, it will check if I is equals to 4, 4 is equals to 4, so it will break. So when it is on 3, then only it will break. I'm so sorry, I got confused at that moment. Similarly, we have the continue example. So it will check while I is less than 10 if I is equals to 4. So if I equals to, so we'll see this full example. We'll first I is 0, so I is not 4, so it will go on and print I, and it will increment I, then 1, then 2, then 3, right? Once it prints 3 and increments 3, increments I by 1, so we'll get 4, right? So it will check 4 is less than 10, yes, so it will go in, it will check 4 is equals to 4, yes, so it will increment I, right? So it will set the value of I to 5, and then it will go continue. We do not want to show the value of 4, but if we don't increment the value of I in here, always I's value will remain 4, and we will always do continue, 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 so we will go in an infinite loop. That's why I plus plus is important over here, to increment the value of I, so that you do not go in the infinite loop. So you have 0, 1, 2,
Okay.
3, and then you'll have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is this clear, or any doubts?
So wouldn't it have worked without that if statement also?
What?
Without that if statement also, it would have worked the same, right?
No. Without the if statement, 4 would have also been executed, right? So we had to check if I is equals to
Okay.
4. So we want to skip the iteration of 4. So that's why we'll check if I is 4, then we'll say I plus plus, and we'll just say continue. So we get 0, 1, 2, 3, and then we get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Without the if statement, we'll have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
Next we have the exercise. So just a second, I'll just close the unnecessary tabs. Alright. Okay. Next we are on arrays, and in this chapter we'll study in detail about arrays, and then we'll create the battleship game. So C++ arrays. Arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable instead of declaring separate variables for each value. So you can store multiple values in a single variable using arrays. To declare an array, define the variable type, specify the name of the array followed by square brackets, and specify the number of elements it should store. So we'll just delete this or we'll just keep this code, we'll just comment it out, right? And we'll go ahead and we'll just create another main method. Alright, so in this what we can do, we can create a string array. So string array means that an array, right, where multiple strings can be stored in a single variable, right? And the type of the value should only be string in a string array, right? So if we say string cars 4 equals to or we say this string cars 4. So like this, what we are doing, we are defining an array, right, which can contain string values and it can have 4 elements. Is this clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
It's very similar to the lists in Python. So now that we have declared a variable that holds an array of 4 strings, to insert values to it, we can use the array literal, right? Place the values in a comma separated list inside curly braces. So in Python, you have curly braces for dictionaries, but in C++, you have curly braces for arrays. And now we can give our values in this, like Toyota, Volvo, and we have BMW and Ford. BMW and 4. So we have 4 values in this. If we try to give 5 values, I believe it wouldn't have worked. And there's Mazda, right? So it's giving a red underline under Mazda because we are saying it to create a string array with 4 elements only, but we are giving it 5 elements. So that will lead us to an error. So if we are saying it to create have 4 elements in the array, then we can only give 4 elements. But if we said it 5 elements, we said it should have 5 elements and we only give 4 elements, that's not a problem. Giving more elements than the limit is a problem, but giving less elements than the limit is not a problem. So we are saying that this cars array can potentially contain 5 elements, but we are giving only 4 in the start, right? So that's not a problem. But if we say it can only contain 3 elements and try to give 4, that will lead to an error. Is this clear?
Okay.
Alright. Similarly, you can have an integer array, like here we have minum integer array that will contain 3 integers. So you can have an array of any data type. Next, we are gonna see how to access the elements of an array, right? So similarly in Python, like you use indexing to access array items. Similarly in C++, we'll use indexing to access array items. So indexing starts from 0. So when accessing the 0th element, you'll get the first element of the array. When accessing the first indexed element, you'll get the second item of the array, and so on. So if I say cout the cars array value that is on the 0th element, so this will show you as Toyota because on the 0th index we have Toyota. If we say 1 on the first index, so it will show us Volvo, and so on. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Alright. So very similarly, how like we are accessing elements, we can also change elements. So you can say, you can for example say cars 1 is equals to Honda, right? And next, if we try to show the full array, let's try to show the full array. Let's show the full cars array. Then we'll get Toyota, Honda, BMW, and Ford. So when trying to show the full array, it's giving us the memory location of the array. It's not actually giving us the array. So let's just show the first element of the array to make sure that it has changed. So we'll get Honda over here instead of Volvo. So is this clear?
Yeah.
Alright. Next we are gonna see how to loop through an array. So you can loop through an array elements. You loop through the array elements using the for loop, right? So the following example outputs all elements in the cars array. So we have a cars array with 5 elements. Then we are saying for int I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, and then we can just show the values of cars I. So let's just make this more clear. We can say for int I is equals to 0, I less than 4, I plus plus, and then we can say cout cars I. So what this is doing, first i's value is 0, so it will show cars value that is on the 0th element, so Toyota. Then it will show the first indexed item, that is Volvo. Then it will show the second indexed item, that is BMW. Then it will show the third indexed item, that is Ford. So it will show all the 4 elements. So we are looping and it will show Toyota, then Volvo, then BMW, then Ford. Very similar
Okay.
to Python. Alright. So next we can also show on which index is our car on. So we can say cout, and we can say I, then we can say like equals to, right, and then we can say cars I, and let's add a new line for more clarity. So it will show 0 is equals to Toyota, then it will show 1 is equals to Volvo, then it's showing 2 equals to BMW, then it's showing 3 equals to Ford.
Okay.
So do you have any doubts?
No, it's clear.
Alright. Similarly, you can also loop through an integer array, like you were looping through the string array, or you can loop through any data type array, right? Boolean, float, double. You can loop through any data types array. Next, we have the for each loop. So this is also a for each loop that we saw in the for loop chapter that was introduced in 2011 in C++, which is used exclusively to loop through elements in an array, right? So this the motive of the for each loop is to loop through array items. So what we can say, we have this cars array. We can say for we can say string I in, or no, it's not in, it's whole. Sorry about that. String I in cars, right? And we'll just show the value of I and then end L. So what will happen over here? It's taking the first element in I of the cars, that is Toyota. It will show the value Toyota. It will add a new line. Then it will go and take the second element. Then it will take the third element. It will take the fourth element and show them all one by one. Alright. So this is how you can use the for each loop with arrays. Now over here we are giving the array size that it should have 4 elements. We can also omit the array size. So like if we don't give 4 over here, the compiler is smart enough to occupy enough memory for these 4 elements, right? So we are not giving 4 in cars, so the compiler is smart enough to occupy memory enough to store 4 elements of the cars array, like that if you don't specify how many elements you have. So if in C++ you don't have to specify the size of the array. The compiler is smart enough to determine the size of the array based on the number of inserted values. Alright, so um, without giving the size and with giving the size is the same thing. Alright.
Yeah.
So next what you can also omit elements on declaration. So what you can say, you can declare your cars array like with size 5, right? So we over here we are saying this is a cars array which will have 5 elements, but we can give the elements afterwards. So we can say cars 0, uh, 0 is equals to Toyota. So afterwards we can define the elements of our cars array, like cars 1 is equals to Volvo, right, and so on. Afterwards we can define the uh, elements of our cars array instead of just giving them at one go when defining the array. You can give these afterwards also. So basic concepts that you have like in Python too with lists.
Okay.
Alright, so any doubts?
No, it's good.
Alright, so next we have the size of the array, right, and this is a new concept that is not in Python. In Python you get directly the length of the array, but in this you'll get the size of, right? So let's just switch from the string array to an int array. So int my num is equals to, and we can say 10, 20, or sorry, I got to keep the brackets, 10, 20, 30, right? Now what if I want to check how many elements are there in this array? So what we'll do, we'll say cout size of my num, right? So size of is a built-in method in C++. So size of my num, it is giving us 12. Now we can see over here we only have 3 elements, but we are getting the value 12 from size of. Why is that? In the data types chapter, uh, yeah. So in the data types were you saying something?
No, sorry.
Alright. So in the data types chapter, we saw an integer usually occupies 4 bytes in the memory, right? So it is telling us how much this array is actually how much space is this array actually consuming in the memory. So it's saying that this array occupies 12 bytes. So because we have 3 elements, all which take in 4 bytes, so we have 12 bytes because 3 into 4 is 12, right? So we know that an integer we know that an integer will always take 4 bytes, right? We have 3 integers, so it is taking 12 bytes. So overall this array is taking 12 bytes. So if we divide it by 4, because an integer is always taking 4 bytes, if we divide this by 4, we'll get the number of elements that are there in the array. That is 3. So any doubts, as this is a new concept?
So it's clear.
Alright. So here there is a simple explanation. Why did the result show 20 instead of 5 when the array contains 5 elements? It's because the size of an operator returns the size of type in bytes, right? So you learn from the data type chapter that an type is usually 4 bytes. So from the example above, 4 into 5, 4 bytes into 5 elements is equal to 20 bytes. So to find how many elements an array has, you have to divide the size of the array by the size of the data type it contains. So instead of directly giving it a 4, you could have said divided by the size of integer. So what this will do, it will take the size of integer. So every integer size is 4, and it will take the size of my num, so that is 12. So 12 divided by 4 will also give us 3, right? So this size of my num divided by size of integer is more clear.
Okay.
So next we have loop through an array with size of. So we can also loop through an array using size of. So in the arrays and loops chapter, we wrote the size of the array in loop condition I less than 5, right? So over here, we were saying I less than 5, I less than 5, right? We were giving it ourselves, we were giving it ourselves that I less than 5, I less than 5, right? So instead of that, that is not ideal, since it will only work for arrays of a specified size. However, by using like over there we were specifying the size of the array. But what if we don't know the size of the array? So you will have to use the size of method to loop through the array, right? So by using the size of approach from the example above, we can now make loops that work for arrays of any size, which is more sustainable. So instead of writing this that was in the chapter, what we should do, we're doing I less than 5, we can say I less than size of my numbers divided by size of integer. So this, we know that size of your array divided by size of the data type gives us the length of the array, right? So this will give us 5 over here, right? And now it will put in 5 uh, from this you can say formula, right? Because size of my numbers will be because size of my numbers will be 20, size of integer is 4, so we put in 5, right? So if we had 6 elements, 7 elements, so this for loop would have worked for it. But this for loop over here that is above would have only worked for your arrays with integer arrays with 5 elements. This for loop can work with this array with any amount of elements you want, 3, 5, 7, 9, any amount of elements.
Okay.
So here we have the example, we have the my numbers array that let's just not specify the size as let's just interpret we don't know the size of the array, right? So we'll say size of my numbers that is 20 divided by size of integer that is 4, so we'll get 5 over here, and this loop will run 5 times and show all the values one by one. All right. Today we'll try to do the battleship in multi-dimensional arrays. But if we are not able to, we'll complete the code above the battleship and then code the battleship game in the next class. So
Okay.
let's just try to reach till the battleship game. So multi-dimensional arrays. A multi-dimensional array is an array of arrays. So when there are cases where you have to have arrays inside of arrays, right? When you have rows and columns, then mostly it's easier to maintain arrays inside of arrays, right? So to declare a multi-dimensional array, you have to define the variable type, specify the name of the array followed by square brackets which specify how many elements the main array has, followed by another set of square brackets which indicates how many elements the subarrays have. So this definition wouldn't have been that clear, so let's just look it by example. So we have a string array, so we are saying in the end the subarrays will also have string elements, will only have string elements, right? We're naming the array letters, and we are saying that we'll have two arrays in our main array. So in our main array, that is this, we'll have two different arrays, right? We're saying this with 4 strings each. So you'll have 4 strings in this and 4 strings in this. Alright?
So what's this 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 on the output window?
In the previous example,
Achha, it's of previous, sorry. I thought it was of this.
that was about omitting the size, using the size of a method with the for loop. That was the different example. We want to see this? See
Okay.
it? I will revert back to it. Just revert back to
No,
that.
I just got confused.
Okay.
Why did it show up this?
Alright. So as with ordinary arrays, you can insert values with an array literal, right? A comma separated list inside curly braces. So like you separate different elements, similarly you can separate these two arrays that are in the main array using the comma, right? So in a multi-dimensional array, each element in an array literal is another array literal, right? So in our multi-dimensional array, we have two array literals in this, right, which contain 4 string values. So each set of square brackets is an array declaration that adds another dimension to an array. right? So we have two square brackets, meaning that we'll have one we'll have uh, so we have two square brackets over here. So the first one specifies how many arrays we'll have in the main array, and then the second one specifies how many elements we'll have in each sub array. So as you can see here, we have the first main array, and we have the two subarrays, right? So we have two dimensions, you can say, right? If we have three square brackets, we'll have three dimensions, as we'll have this main array, then we'll have subarrays in which you'll have other subarrays, right? So we'll see the three-dimensional also. So an array like the one above is said to have two dimensions. So we have the main array, that is the first dimension, and in that we have two other arrays, right? So that is the second dimension. This is the second dimension, right? And in each of these arrays we have four elements. So we have two arrays. So we have, this is a two-dimensional array. So arrays can have any number of dimensions. The more dimension an array has, the more complex the code becomes. So the following array has three dimensions. So what is happening over here? We are seeing that there are two arrays in the main array, right? In which in each subarray we'll have two arrays, and in these two arrays you will have two elements, right? So it's getting a bit complex, but this is basically saying that in the main array you'll have two different arrays, and in each array you'll have two different arrays, and in each of those subarrays you'll have two different elements, if that makes any sense.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so it's a bit complex, so if you have any doubts, please let me know, because this multi-dimensional array concept will be used in the battleship game, and it's very important.
That's cool.
Alright. So next we are saying access the elements of a multi-dimensional array. So like we access elements of any other array, we can access elements of the multi-dimensional array using the square bracket notation, right? So like we have this, we just copy this array. This is the two-dimensional array. Alright, and we can just show Cout, and we can say we want letters. We can say letters, and we can say from the zeroth array in letters. So from this array, access the second indexed element, that is the third element. So this is saying from the zeroth array in letters, that is this, access the second indexed element. So this is the zeroth index, this is the first index, and this is the second index. So it will access C and print it. So we'll get C on the screen. If we said 0 0, then in the zeroth from the zeroth array in the letters array, it would have accessed the zeroth element. So we would have gotten A. Is this clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Alright. So we can also change elements in a multi-dimensional array. Like we are accessing, we can also change elements in a multi-dimensional array, like letter 0 0, we can say equals to Z. So this will access the zeroth letter of the subarray, that is A, and it will set it to Z. So then when we try to show letters 0 0, then we'll get Z, as we changed A to Z. So we get Z. Is this clear?
Okay.
Alright.
Yeah.
So now last concept for today, and then tomorrow we'll create the battleship, that is looping through a multi-dimensional array. So to loop through a multi-dimensional array, you need one loop for each of the array's dimensions, right? So like how the number of dimensions you have, you need one loop for each dimension. So the following example outputs all the elements of the array, right? So we have letters 2 4, so we have this array, right? So we can say for int I equals to 0, I less than 2, I plus plus, and we have for int j equals to 0, j less than 4, j plus plus. So what this is doing, it will loop on I, it will say I equals to 0, I less than 2, I plus plus. So what this is doing, it will first first in I you will get when accessing. Alright, let me explain this. So we have for in j equals to 0, j less than 4, j plus plus. So for each I iteration of I, we this full j loop will run, right? So when this j loop is running, right, first j is 0, so we are saying letters I j. So I will remain 0 till j is running. So letter 0, so letter 0, and then we are saying j. So j is 0. So first it will access 0 0, then it will access 0 1, then it will access 0 2, then it will access 0 3. Right? Then when j is 4, j is not 4 is not less than 4, so it will break out of the loop. It will go on to the second iteration of I and set i's value to 1. Then check say letters 1 0, then 1 1 1 2 1 3, right? Then it will break out of the j loop. It will increment I, and it will say it will check if I is less than 2, so 2 is not less than 2, so it will break out. So it will show A B C D E F G H. All right. So similarly, we have this example that shows how to loop through a three-dimensional array. So we have letters 2 2 2, right, and then we have this three-dimensional array that we had previously. So what we are saying for I equals to 0, I less than 2, I plus plus. For j equals to 0, j less than 2, j plus plus. And then for k equals to 0, k less than 2, k plus plus. Right? And then here, when I is 0, and k will remain 0 till k, I will remain 0 and j will remain 0 till k is running. So it will first access 0 0 0, then 0 0 1, right? Then it will go out, it will set increment the value of j, so you'll get 0 1 0 0 1 1, right? Then it will go out, it will increment the value of I by 1, right? And it will set j to 0, so we'll have 1 0 0 1 0 1. Then it will increment the value of j, so we'll have 1 1 0 and 1 1 1, right? And it will access uh, each element in the three-dimensional array, right? And we'll just see this in more detail uh, when we'll create the battleship game in the next class. So this is the end of the class. I hope you liked it. Thank you.